Hello everyone, and welcome to today's journey into one of Buddhism's most profound and comforting texts, the Infinite Life Sutra, known in Sanskrit as the Amitayurdhyana-sutra or larger Sukhavativyuha. Today we'll explore the 48 great vows of Amitabha Buddha and discover how this ancient wisdom offers infinite compassion and hope for our modern lives. The Infinite Life Sutra tells us the extraordinary story of Dharmakara, a monk who would become Amitabha Buddha, and his 48 vows to create a pure land where all beings could find refuge and ultimate liberation. This isn't just an ancient tale, but a living source of comfort that has brought peace to countless hearts across centuries. As we journey through these teachings today, let me invite you to open your heart to the possibility that no matter how lost or struggling you might feel, there is always a place of infinite compassion waiting for you. The sutra begins by describing how long ago, countless eons in the past, there lived a king who encountered a Buddha named Lokeshvararaja. This king was so moved by the Buddha's teachings that he renounced his throne and became a monk, taking the name Dharmakara. What's beautiful about this beginning is that it shows us transformation is always possible. Here was someone who had everything the world could offer, power, wealth, status, yet he recognized that true fulfillment lay elsewhere. When we translate this literally, the name Dharmakara means treasury of Dharma, or storehouse of truth. This isn't just a name, it's a promise. Dharmakara represents the infinite potential within each of us to become a treasury of wisdom and compassion. Think about your own life for a moment. You might feel ordinary, perhaps even struggling or uncertain about your path. But this story reminds us that even the most extraordinary spiritual achievement begins with an ordinary person who simply decides to seek something deeper. The story can be interpreted on many levels. On one level, it's the historical account of how Amitabha Buddha came to be. On another level, it's a psychological map showing us how anyone can transform from a state of worldly attachment to one of spiritual liberation. The king's renunciation isn't necessarily about giving up material things, but about shifting our priorities from external validation to inner peace and wisdom. Western philosophers have found remarkable parallels in this transformation story. Carl Jung spoke about the process of individuation, where a person moves from identification with their social persona to discovering their authentic self. The king's journey mirrors this perfectly, moving from identification with royal status to discovering his true spiritual nature. Similarly, existentialist philosophers like Kierkegaard wrote about the leap of faith required to move from an aesthetic life focused on pleasure and achievement to an ethical and finally religious life focused on meaning and transcendence. Modern psychology recognizes this pattern too. Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs shows how once basic needs are met, humans naturally seek self-actualization and transcendence. The king in our story had met all his material needs, but still felt called to something greater. This validates what many of us experience, that success in worldly terms doesn't automatically bring lasting happiness or peace. For you listening today, this story offers profound comfort. Maybe you're at a crossroads in your life, feeling that what once satisfied you no longer does. Maybe you're questioning the path you've been on, wondering if there's something more meaningful waiting for you. The story of Dharmakara tells us that this restlessness, this seeking, is actually a sign of spiritual awakening. It's your inner wisdom calling you towards something greater. Trust that calling. You don't have to have all the answers right now. The very fact that you're questioning, that you're seeking, means you're already on the path. After becoming a monk, Dharmakara approached his teacher, Lokeshvara Rajabuddha, with an extraordinary request. He wanted to understand all the Buddha lands throughout the universe, to see what made them pure and perfect, so that he could create the most wonderful, pure land of all. The teacher, recognizing Dharmakara's sincere aspiration, used his spiritual powers to show him millions upon millions of Buddha lands across infinite space and time. The literal meaning here is staggering. We're talking about Dharmakara witnessing not just a few examples, but countless universes, each with its own perfect qualities. For 5 khans, an unimaginably long time, he studied and contemplated these pure lands, learning what made each one special, what kinds of conditions led to the greatest happiness and spiritual progress for beings living there. This part of the story can be understood as representing the importance of thorough preparation and deep contemplation before making major commitments. Dharmakara didn't rush into making his vows. He took the time to truly understand what would be most beneficial for all beings. This teaches us about the value of patience and careful consideration in our own spiritual development. The German philosopher Hegel wrote about the importance of synthesis, how true wisdom comes from understanding opposing elements and finding a way to unite them harmoniously. Dharmakara's study of countless pure lands represents this same process, gathering all the best qualities and synthesizing them into something even more perfect. Immanuel Kant spoke about the categorical imperative, acting only according to principles we could will to be universal laws. Dharmakara's approach embodies this perfectly. He sought to understand what conditions would be best for all beings everywhere. Contemporary systems theory and design thinking follow similar principles. Before creating solutions, we study existing systems thoroughly, understand what works and what doesn't, then synthesize the best elements into something new and improved. Steve Jobs was famous for this approach, studying countless designs before creating products that synthesize the best features in entirely new ways. What comfort can you draw from this part of the story? Perhaps you're facing a major decision in your life, whether about career, relationships, or personal direction. Dharmakara's example shows us the wisdom of taking time to really understand our options before committing. Don't let anyone pressure you into rushing important decisions. It's okay to take time to explore, to learn, to understand what truly aligns with your deepest values and aspirations. The time you spend in careful consideration isn't wasted. It's an investment in making choices that will truly serve your highest good and the good of others. After this long period of study and contemplation, Dharmakara returned to his teacher and made 48 extraordinary vows. These weren't just personal commitments, but cosmic promises that would determine the very structure of reality itself. He declared that he would not accept Buddhahood until he could create a pure land that embodied all these vows, a place where all beings could find refuge and achieve enlightenment with ease. The literal content of these vows is breathtaking in scope. They cover everything from the fundamental conditions of his pure land to specific promises about how beings would be born there, what they would experience, and how they would progress toward enlightenment. Some vows address the elimination of suffering, others guarantee spiritual progress, and still others ensure that all beings, regardless of their current condition, could find refuge in his pure land. These vows can be interpreted as representing the ultimate expression of compassion and wisdom working together. They're not just wishful thinking, but a systematic approach to solving the fundamental problems that prevent beings from achieving happiness and liberation. Each vow addresses a specific obstacle to enlightenment and provides a divine solution. The scope of these vows reminds us of Kant's concept of practical reason and moral imperatives. Just as Kant argued that moral actions must be based on principles that could apply universally, Dharmakara's vows are universal in scope, applying to all beings everywhere. John Rawls' theory of justice, developed behind a veil of ignorance, where we don't know our place in society, parallels this approach. Dharmakara's vows are made from a perspective that considers the needs of all beings equally. Modern humanitarian movements embody similar aspirations. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights attempts to establish principles that ensure dignity and opportunity for all people. Environmental movements work to create conditions where all life can flourish. These reflect the same spirit as Dharmakara's vows, using wisdom and compassion to address systemic problems that cause suffering. For your own life, these vows offer incredible reassurance. They represent a cosmic safety net, a guarantee that no matter how far you might fall or how lost you might become, there is always a place of infinite compassion ready to receive you. You don't have to earn this compassion or prove yourself worthy of it. The very fact that you exist, that you suffer, that you seek happiness, makes you eligible for this infinite love and support. When life feels overwhelming, when you feel alone or inadequate, remember that these vows were made specifically with you in mind, ensuring that you always have a place to turn for comfort and guidance. Let's explore some of the most significant of these 48 vows, starting with the 18th vow, often called the fundamental vow. This vow states that when Dharmakara becomes a Buddha, any being who hears his name, develops sincere faith, and wishes to be born in his pure land, calling his name even just 10 times with a sincere heart, will definitely be born there. The only exceptions would be those who commit the most serious spiritual crimes or who reject the Dharma entirely. The literal meaning of this vow is revolutionary. It promises that enlightenment is not reserved for spiritual athletes who can meditate for hours or scholars who master complex philosophy. Instead, it's available to anyone who can develop sincere faith and call upon Amitabha's name with genuine devotion. The requirement is not perfection, but sincerity. This vow can be interpreted as expressing the deepest truth about spiritual practice, that it's not about our own power and effort alone, but about opening ourselves to receive grace and compassion that comes from beyond our limited selves. It represents the ultimate democratization of enlightenment, making it accessible to everyone regardless of their circumstances, education, or spiritual abilities. Martin Luther's concept of salvation by grace alone through faith resonates strongly with this vow. Luther argued against the idea that we must earn salvation through works, instead emphasizing that it comes as a gift through sincere faith. Similarly, this vow emphasizes that birth in the Pure Land comes not through our merit, but through sincere reliance on Amitabha's compassionate power. Contemporary therapeutic approaches recognize similar principles. Carl Rogers' person-centered therapy emphasizes unconditional positive regard. The idea that healing comes through being accepted and valued as we are, not through having to become someone different first. This mirrors the unconditional nature of Amitabha's acceptance expressed in this vow. What profound comfort this offers you today. You don't have to be perfect to be worthy of love and spiritual support. You don't have to have your life figured out or be free from mistakes and problems. The very fact that you recognize your need for help, that you reach out with sincerity, opens the door to infinite compassion. Whether you call it Buddha nature, divine grace, or simply the power of sincere intention, there is a force of love and wisdom always ready to respond to your genuine call for help. The 19th vow promises that Amitabha will appear before anyone at the moment of their death, accompanied by a great assembly of bodhisattvas to guide them peacefully to the Pure Land. This vow addresses one of humanity's deepest fears, the fear of dying alone or in confusion, uncertain about what comes next. Literally, this vow guarantees that no one who has called upon Amitabha with faith will face death alone. At that crucial moment of transition, they will see Amitabha Buddha clearly, surrounded by compassionate beings, ready to guide them safely to a realm of perfect peace and happiness. This is not a vague promise, but a specific commitment about the experience of dying. This vow can be understood as addressing the psychological need for security and guidance during life's most challenging transition. It recognizes that while death is natural, the process of dying can be frightening and disorienting, and provides reassurance that we won't have to navigate this experience without help. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who pioneered research into near-death experiences, documented numerous accounts of people seeing beings of light or deceased loved ones during the dying process, providing comfort and guidance. Carl Jung wrote about the collective unconscious and archetypal images that provide psychological support during times of crisis. The appearance of Amitabha can be understood as both a literal spiritual reality and a manifestation of the psyche's natural capacity to provide comfort during transition. Modern hospice care recognizes the importance of providing emotional and spiritual support during the dying process. The presence of caring people, peaceful environments, and spiritual resources all contribute to a more peaceful death experience. This mirrors the spirit of Amitabha's vow, ensuring that no one faces their final transition without compassionate support. For you personally, this vow offers liberation from one of life's deepest anxieties. Whether you're facing your own mortality or grieving the loss of loved ones, this teaching provides reassurance that death is not an ending but a transition, and that transition is guided by infinite compassion. You don't have to fear being abandoned at life's end. Even if you feel alone in life, you will not be alone in death. This knowledge can help you live with greater peace, knowing that whatever challenges you face, you are ultimately held by a love that transcends even death itself. The 20th vow addresses the speed of spiritual progress in the Pure Land, promising that beings born there will quickly achieve enlightenment rather than having to struggle for countless lifetimes, as is often necessary in ordinary worlds. This vow recognizes that while enlightenment is the ultimate goal, the process of achieving it can be frustratingly slow and difficult in our current conditions. The literal meaning indicates that the Pure Land is designed for rapid spiritual development. Unlike our world, where spiritual progress can be slow and filled with setbacks, conditions in Amitabha's Pure Land are perfect for continuous advancement toward full enlightenment. Every aspect of that realm supports and accelerates spiritual growth. This vow can be interpreted as representing the power of optimal conditions to facilitate growth and learning. Just as students learn better in supportive educational environments, and plants grow better in ideal soil and climate conditions, spiritual development flourishes when external obstacles are removed and supportive conditions are provided. Educational psychology has extensively studied the importance of optimal learning environments. Jerome Bruner's research on scaffolding shows how proper support structures can dramatically accelerate learning. Similarly, Lev Vygotsky's concept of the zone of proximal development demonstrates how learners can achieve much more with appropriate guidance than they could alone. Amitabha's Pure Land can be understood as providing perfect scaffolding and guidance for spiritual development. Modern neuroscience research on neuroplasticity shows that the brain can change and develop throughout life when given the right stimuli and conditions. This scientific understanding parallels the spiritual truth that consciousness can transform rapidly when placed in optimal conditions for growth. This teaching offers you hope about your own spiritual journey. Maybe you feel frustrated with your slow progress, discouraged by repeated setbacks, or overwhelmed by how much work spiritual development seems to require. This vow reminds you that your current struggles are largely due to difficult conditions, not to any fundamental inadequacy on your part. With the right support and conditions, you have unlimited potential for growth and transformation. Don't judge your spiritual progress too harshly based on current circumstances. Keep your aspiration alive, knowing that optimal conditions for your development are always available to you. The first vow promises that there will be no hell beings, hungry ghosts, or animals in Amitabha's Pure Land. This means that once born there, beings are free from the lower realms of existence that involve intense suffering and limited opportunities for spiritual growth. Literally, this vow guarantees liberation from the worst forms of suffering. The hell realms represent states of intense physical and mental anguish. Hungry ghosts represent states of insatiable craving and perpetual dissatisfaction. And the animal realm represents states of ignorance and instinct-driven existence. By promising these conditions won't exist in his Pure Land, Amitabha ensures a foundation of safety and dignity for all inhabitants. This vow can be interpreted psychologically as representing freedom from the most destructive mental states. Hell-like consciousness involves being trapped in anger, hatred, and self-torture. Hungry ghost consciousness involves addiction, compulsion, and never feeling satisfied. Animal consciousness involves operating purely from instinct without wisdom or reflection. The Pure Land represents a state of consciousness free from these limiting patterns. Psychologist Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs shows how higher human potentials can only emerge when basic needs for safety and security are met. Similarly, this vow ensures that the foundational requirement for spiritual growth, freedom from overwhelming suffering, is guaranteed in the Pure Land. Viktor Frankl's work with Holocaust survivors demonstrated that humans can transcend even extreme suffering when they find meaning and hope. However, he also recognized that some conditions are so extreme they overwhelm the capacity for growth. Amitabha's first vow ensures that such overwhelming conditions simply don't exist in the Pure Land. For your daily life, this vow offers assurance that your deepest fears about falling into destructive patterns or overwhelming suffering are addressed by infinite compassion. When you're struggling with addiction, depression, anger, or other difficult mental states, remember that these are temporary conditions, not your true nature. You have a sanctuary of perfect peace and safety, always available to you. Even when life feels hellish, when you're trapped in craving, or when you feel like you're operating on pure survival instinct, there's a part of you that remains connected to perfect peace and wisdom. The 11th vow promises that all beings in the Pure Land will definitely achieve enlightenment and will never fall back into lower states of consciousness. This addresses the fear that even spiritual achievements might be temporary, or that we might lose the progress we've made. The literal meaning guarantees permanent spiritual security. Once you achieve birth in the Pure Land, your progress toward full enlightenment is assured. There's no possibility of regression, no chance of falling back into ignorance or suffering. This represents ultimate spiritual insurance, ensuring that any genuine spiritual achievement is permanently secure. This vow can be understood as expressing the irreversible nature of genuine awakening. While we might experience temporary setbacks in our spiritual practice, any authentic insight into our true nature is permanently transformative. It's like learning to ride a bicycle. Once you truly get it, you never completely lose that knowledge. Neuroscientist Rick Hanson's research on taking in the good shows how positive experiences can create lasting changes in brain structure when they're properly internalized. This scientific finding parallels the spiritual truth that genuine spiritual experiences create permanent positive changes in consciousness. Carl Jung wrote about the process of individuation as irreversible once it truly begins. While there might be temporary regressions, the overall movement toward psychological wholeness continues throughout life. Similarly, once we truly begin the spiritual journey, our essential direction toward enlightenment is secure. This vow provides tremendous relief for your spiritual anxieties. Maybe you worry that any peace or wisdom you achieve might be lost, that you're not strong enough to maintain spiritual progress, or that you'll inevitably fall back into old patterns. This teaching assures you that genuine spiritual insights are permanent additions to your consciousness. Every moment of real peace, every flash of genuine compassion, every experience of authentic wisdom becomes a permanent part of who you are. You can trust the process of your spiritual development, knowing that you're always moving in the right direction, even when progress seems slow or interrupted. The 22nd vow promises that bodhisattvas in the Pure Land will be able to travel instantly to other world systems to help suffering beings, then return to the Pure Land in the time it takes to eat a meal. This vow addresses the concern that focusing on our own liberation might lead to neglecting the needs of others. Literally, this vow guarantees that achieving peace and happiness in the Pure Land doesn't mean abandoning compassionate activity in the world. Instead, it provides the perfect foundation for even more effective service to others. With complete spiritual security as a base, bodhisattvas can fearlessly engage with suffering wherever it exists. This vow can be interpreted as resolving the false choice between personal spiritual development and service to others. It shows that taking care of our own spiritual needs actually enhances rather than diminishes our capacity to help others. From a place of genuine peace and wisdom, we can offer much more effective support to those who are struggling. The ancient Greek concept of eudaimonia, often translated as flourishing or well-being, includes both personal fulfillment and contribution to the common good. Similarly, this vow shows that true spiritual achievement naturally includes both personal liberation and compassionate service. Modern psychology recognizes that helpers need to maintain their own well-being to avoid burnout and compassion fatigue. The concept of putting on your own oxygen mask first reflects the same wisdom expressed in this vow. We serve others best when we ourselves are spiritually nourished and secure. This teaching offers guidance for balancing self-care and service in your own life. You don't have to choose between taking care of yourself and helping others. In fact, the better you take care of your own spiritual and emotional needs, the more you'll have to offer others. Don't feel guilty about focusing on your own healing and growth. That work actually prepares you to be more compassionate and effective in serving others. Trust that developing your own peace and wisdom is itself a form of service to the world. The sixth vow promises that all beings born in the Pure Land will have perfect memory, able to recall all their past lives and understand the karmic connections that led to their current situation. This addresses the confusion and lack of understanding that often accompanies our experience of life's challenges and relationships. The literal meaning guarantees complete clarity about our spiritual history and the patterns that have shaped our development. With perfect memory of past lives, beings in the Pure Land understand why certain experiences happen, how their current relationships developed, and what lessons they're meant to learn from various situations. This vow can be interpreted as representing the achievement of complete self-understanding. Instead of feeling confused about why certain things happen to us or why we react in particular ways, we gain clarity about the deeper patterns and purposes in our experience. This understanding brings peace and helps us respond more wisely to life's challenges. Carl Jung's concept of the collective unconscious and his emphasis on understanding personal history and archetypal patterns reflects similar wisdom. Jung believed that psychological healing comes through understanding the deeper patterns that shape our experience, including family history, cultural influences, and universal human themes. Modern trauma therapy recognizes that healing often involves recovering and integrating memories that have been suppressed or fragmented. Approaches like EMDR help clients process traumatic memories so they no longer control current behavior unconsciously. The perfect memory promised in this vow represents complete integration of all experience. For your current struggles, this vow offers hope that confusion and lack of understanding are temporary conditions. Even if you can't understand why certain painful things have happened to you or why you struggle with particular patterns, there is a perspective from which everything makes sense and serves your spiritual growth. You don't need to figure everything out right now. Trust that ultimately all your experiences, even the difficult ones, are part of a larger pattern of learning and development that will eventually become clear. The eighth vow promises that all women born in the Pure Land who wish to have male bodies will instantly receive them, addressing the historical disadvantages that women faced in many spiritual traditions due to cultural limitations and discrimination. Literally, this vow ensures that gender doesn't create any barriers to spiritual achievement in the Pure Land. While this might seem strange from a modern perspective that recognizes the equal spiritual capacity of all genders, in ancient times many spiritual traditions taught that male rebirth was necessary for achieving certain levels of enlightenment. This vow can be interpreted more broadly as representing the elimination of all artificial barriers to spiritual development, whether based on gender, race, social class, education, or any other external factor. The Pure Land provides equal opportunity for all beings to achieve their highest potential. The feminist philosopher Simone de Beauvoir wrote about how women have been defined as the other and denied equal opportunities for self-actualization. This vow addresses such limitations by ensuring that external circumstances never prevent anyone from achieving their spiritual goals. Modern social justice movements work to eliminate barriers based on identity categories, recognizing that human potential is equally distributed, but opportunity often isn't. The spirit of Amitabha's vow aligns with these efforts to create conditions where everyone can flourish, regardless of external circumstances. For your own life, this vow represents the promise that whatever limitations you feel constrained by, whether based on your background, identity, past mistakes, or current circumstances, these don't determine your spiritual potential. The universe is ultimately designed to support your highest development, and any apparent barriers are temporary obstacles, not permanent limitations. You have every right to aspire to the highest spiritual achievements, regardless of where you started or what challenges you currently face. The 24th vow promises that bodhisattvas in the Pure Land will have access to unlimited offerings to make to all Buddhas throughout the universe, enabling them to accumulate infinite merit and wisdom through generous giving. Literally, this vow ensures that residents of the Pure Land never lack the resources needed for spiritual practice. Making offerings to enlightened beings has always been considered a powerful way to cultivate generosity and accumulate positive karma. But in ordinary worlds, our resources for giving are limited. This vow removes that limitation entirely. This vow can be understood as representing the principle of abundance in spiritual practice. When we're focused on scarcity and limitation, our spiritual development is constrained. But when we operate from a sense of abundance and unlimited potential, our capacity for growth expands exponentially. The anthropologist Marcel Mauss wrote about gift economies and how the practice of giving creates bonds of relationship and mutual support that strengthen entire communities. Similarly, this vow ensures that bodhisattvas can participate fully in the cosmic economy of giving that connects all enlightened beings. Modern psychology research shows that acts of generosity and gratitude significantly increase personal happiness and well-being. The practice of giving activates the brain's reward centers and creates positive feedback loops that enhance both physical and mental health. This teaching encourages you to practice generosity even with limited resources. The spirit of giving is more important than the material value of what you offer. When you give with a sincere heart, you're participating in the same energy that this vow represents. Don't wait until you have more money or possessions to start practicing generosity. Look for opportunities to give your time, attention, encouragement, or skills. Every act of sincere giving connects you with the abundant nature of reality and helps develop the generous heart that leads to true fulfillment. As we near the end of our exploration today, let's reflect on the profound comfort and inspiration these teachings offer. The 48 vows of Amitabha Buddha represent nothing less than a complete reimagining of what's possible for conscious beings. They promise that suffering is not the final word, that limitation is not permanent, and that every being without exception has access to infinite love and support. What makes these vows so remarkable is their unconditional nature. They don't require you to be perfect before you can receive their benefits. They don't demand that you understand complex philosophy or master difficult meditation techniques. They simply ask for sincerity, for the honest recognition that you need help and the willingness to accept it when it's offered. In our modern world, we often feel isolated and overwhelmed by the pace of change and the complexity of problems we face. These ancient teachings remind us that we're not alone in our struggles, that there are cosmic forces of compassion constantly working to support our well-being and spiritual development. Whether we understand this literally as the activity of an enlightened being named Amitabha Buddha, or metaphorically as the natural tendency of the universe to support consciousness and growth, the practical effect is the same. We can live with confidence that we are ultimately held and supported by something infinitely greater than our individual selves. The Pure Land tradition that grew from these teachings has brought comfort to millions of people over the centuries. It offers a path that doesn't require renouncing the world or achieving perfect moral purity before spiritual practice can begin. Instead, it meets us where we are, with all our limitations and struggles, and provides a way forward based on faith, gratitude, and reliance on compassionate wisdom that transcends our individual capacity. Perhaps most importantly, these teachings remind us that spiritual development is not ultimately about our own effort and achievement, but about learning to receive and trust in sources of wisdom and compassion that are always available to us. This doesn't make us passive or dependent, but rather opens us to resources and possibilities that we could never access through self-reliance alone. As you go forward from today, I invite you to carry these teachings not as abstract beliefs, but as living sources of comfort and guidance. When you feel overwhelmed by life's challenges, remember the vow that promises you're never alone and that help is always available when you call for it sincerely. When you worry about your spiritual progress, remember the vow that guarantees your ultimate success and security. When you feel limited by your circumstances, remember the vows that promise all barriers will ultimately be removed and all potentials fulfilled. The name Amitabha means infinite light and infinite life. This light is the illumination of wisdom that helps us see through confusion and fear to the truth of our situation. This life is the vitality of compassion that never gives up on any being and never stops working for the welfare of all. Both this light and this life are not foreign to you, but represent the deepest truth of your own nature. temporarily obscured by clouds, but never actually absent. May the wisdom we've shared today become a source of lasting peace and confidence in your daily life. May you remember that no matter what challenges you face, you are ultimately held by infinite compassion and destined for complete fulfillment. May the light of wisdom guide your steps and the warmth of compassion comfort your heart, today and always. Thank you for sharing this precious time exploring these profound teachings together. The fact that these ancient wisdom traditions continue to speak to our hearts across thousands of years reminds us that the deepest truths about human potential and cosmic compassion are timeless and universal. May these truths illuminate your path and bring you the peace and joy you deserve.